necessity of insulin and carbohydrate for growth promoting action of the growth hormone. And necessity of insulin and carbohydrate for growth promoting action of growth hormone. Necessity of insulin and necessity of insulin and carbohydrate for the growth promoting action of growth hormone. Now it says that insulin and carbohydrate are necessary for the growth for growth promoting action of growth hormone. Growth hormone fails to cause growth in animals that lack a pancreas. It also fails to cause growth it also fails to cause growth if carbohydrates are excluded from the diet. Carbohydrates are excluded if carbohydrates are excluded from diet. Thus, adequate insulin activity and adequate availability of carbohydrates. Adequate availability of carbohydrates. Necessary for growth hormone to be effective. Part of this requirement Part of this requirement for carbohydrates and insulin is to provide the energy needed for the metabolism of part of this requirement part of this requirement for carbohydrate and insulin is to provide energy needed for the metabolism of growth. But there seem to be other effects as well. Especially important is the ability of insulin to mm, especially important is the ability of mm, especially important is the ability Especially important is the ability of insulin to enhance the transport of some amino acid into the cell in the same way as it stimulates the growth hormone. Is the ability of insulin to enhance the transport of some amino acid, enhance the transport of some amino acid into the cell in the same way that it stimulates growth transport. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. And insulin and carbohydrates. Insulin and carbohydrates. Pancreas, carbohydrate, insulin activity to provide part of this requirement for carbohydrate and insulin is to provide energy needed for metabolism of energy. But there seem to be other effects as well. Especially important is the ability of insulin to enhance the transport of some amino acids. Especially important is the ability of insulin to enhance the transport of some amino acid into the cell in the same way that it stimulates the glucose transport. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Necessity of insulin and carbohydrate. Necessity of insulin and carbohydrate for growth promoting action of the cell. Pancreas, carbohydrates, insulin activity, energy, transfer of amino acid, transport of amino acid. Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates increased deposition of growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates increased deposition of protein and increase growth on almost all tissues of the body, its most obvious effect is to increase growth of growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone, stimulates increased deposition of protein and increased growth in almost all tissues of the body. Increased deposition of proteins and increased growth in almost all tissues of the body. Its most obvious effect is to increase growth of the skeletal frame. Mm, this results from multiple effects of growth hormone on bone, including increased deposition of protein by chondrocytic and osteogenic cells that cause bone growth. Increased rate of reproduction of these cells, a specific effect of converting chondrocytes into a specific effect of converting chondrocytes into a specific effect of converting chondrocytes into osteogenic cells, thus causing deposition of new bone, and converting chondrocytes into osteogenic cells, thus causing deposition of new bone. Mm, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although bone growth hormone stimulates increased deposition of protein and increased deposition of protein, increased growth in almost all tissues. Mm, Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates increased deposition of protein and increased growth in almost all tissues of the body, its most obvious effect is to increase growth of the skeletal frame. Effects of bone growth growth on bone hormone, including mm, increased deposition of protein by chondro. Increased deposition of protein by chondrocytic and osteogenic cells that causes bone growth. Increased rate of reproduction by of these cells, and a specific effect of converting chondrocytes into osteogenic cells, thus causing deposition of new bone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Deposition of protein, increased growth in almost all tissues. Deposition of protein, increased growth in almost all tissues of the body. Increased growth of the skeletal frame, bone, chondrocytic and osteogenic cells. Reproduction of these cells converting chondrocyte into osteogenic cells. Increased deposition of protein by chondrocytic and osteogenic cells. Reproduction of the cell conversion of chondrocytic into osteogenic cells. Bone growth of the skeletal muscle. Increased growth and deposition of the protein. Growth hormone stimulates growth hormone and bone cartilage. Stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Although growth hormone stimulates increased deposition of protein and increased growth in almost all tissues of the body, its most obvious effect is to increase growth. Its most obvious effect is to increase growth in the skeletal muscle frame, and multiple effects of the growth on bone, including increased deposition of protein by chondrocytic and osteogenic cell that cause increased rate of reproduction of the cell, and specific effect of converting chondrocyte to osteogenic cell, causing deposition of new bone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Growth hormone stimulates growth, cartilage and bone growth, deposition of protein, increase growth of in almost all tissues of the body. Deposition of protein, increase growth in almost all tissues of the body. Growth of the skeletal muscle frame. Deposition of protein, increase growth. Deposition of protein, increase growth. Deposition of protein, increase growth. mm, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Deposition of protein, increase growth. Deposition of protein. Growth hormone stimulates cartilage and bone growth. Bone growth. Deposition of protein and increase deposition of protein and increase growth in almost all tissues of the deposition of increase growth in almost all tissues of the body. Is to increase the growth of skeletal muscle frame. Is to skeletal muscle frame. This result from multiple effects of growth hormone on bone, including increased deposition of protein by osteogenic and osteogenic cell that causes the growth of bone, increase rate of reproduction of these cells. Specific effect of converting chondrocytes into osteogenic cells, causing deposition of new bone. Although growth hormone stimulates increased deposition, although growth hormone stimulates increased deposition of protein and increased growth in almost all tissues of the body, its most obvious effect is to cause is to increase growth of the skeletal muscle frame. This results from the multiple effects of the growth hormone on bone, including increased deposition of the protein by chondrocytic and osteogenic cells that cause growth, increased reproduction of rate of reproduction of these cells, and in specific effects of the of converting chondrocyte into osteogenic cells, thus causing deposition of new bone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Growth hormone increased deposition of protein, increased deposition of protein, increased increased deposition of protein, increased growth of bones. Has multiple effects. Growth of skeletal muscle bone and bone, increased deposition of protein by increased deposition of protein by chondrocytic and osteogenic cell, conversion of chondrocytic and osteogenic cell that causes bone growth, increased rate of reproduction. Increased rate of reproduction of these cells. Increased rate of reproduction of these cells and specific effect of converting chondrocyte into osteogenic cells, thus causing deposition of new bone. increased rate of reproduction of these cells in specific effect of converting chondrocytes into increase rate of reproduction of the cell and specific effect of converting chondrocyte into osteogenic cell. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Protein deposition, growth of bones, skeletal framework, chondrocytes and osteogenic cells, chondrocytes and osteogenic cells, growth chondrocytes and reproduction of cells, and chondrocytes and chondrocyte into osteogenic cells. There are two principal mechanisms of bone growth. First, in response to growth hormone stimulation, the long bones grow in length. There are two principal. First, in response, the long bones grow in length at the epiphyseal cartilages, where the epiphyses at the ends of the bones are separated from the shaft. At the epiphyses are separated from the end of the shaft. This growth causes the deposit. This growth first causes the deposition of new cartilage, followed by its conversion into new bone. Deposition of new cartilage, conversion into new bone, thus elongating the shaft and pushing the epiphyses further and further apart. At the same time, the epiphyseal cartilage is progressively used up, and so late by used up. So by late adolescence, no additional epiphyseal cartilage remains to provide for further long bone growth. At this time, bone fusion occurs between the shaft. No additional epiphyseal remains between the shaft and the epiphyses at the end, so no further lengthening of the bone occur. There are two principal mechanisms of bone growth. Long bones grow at the epiphyseal cartilage, deposition of new cartilage followed by conversion into bone. At the same time, no additional epiphyseal cartilage remain. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. There are two principal phases of growth of the long bones at the epiphyseal cartilage: conversion of cartilage into bone, and conversion of cartilage into bone, and then conversion of cartilage into bone. Conversion of cartilage into bone. No epiphyseal cartilage remains, and bony connection occurs. Second, osteoblasts in the preosteum, and in some bony cavities deposit new bone on the surface of the older bone. Second, osteoblasts in the bone. Osteoblast in the bone preosteum, and in some bone cavities deposit new bone on the surface of the older bone. Osteoblasts in the bone preosteum, and in some bony cavities deposit new bone over the surface of the older bone. Osteoblast simultaneously osteoclast in the bone discussed in detail to remove old bone. Osteoclast deposit new bone over the old bone in preosteum and bony cavities. And bony cavities, when the rate of deposition is greater than the rate of deposition is greater than the rate of resorption, the thickness of the bone deposition is greater than that of the resorption, the thickness of the bone increases. The deposition is greater than the resorption, the thickness of the bone increases. Growth hormone strongly stimulates osteo. Growth hormone strongly stimulates Growth hormone strongly stimulates osteoblast. Osteoblast. Therefore, the bones can continue to become thicker throughout life under the influence of growth hormone. This is especially true for This is especially true for the membranous bones. For example, the jaw bone can be stimulated to grow even after adolescence, even after adolescence, causing forward protrusion of the chin, and the lower forward protrusion of the chin and the lower teeth. Likewise, bone the skull can grow in thickness and give rise to bony protrusions over the eyes. Second, osteoblasts in the bony periosteum. Bony periosteum and the bony cavities replace the deposit new bone on surface available bone osteoclast in the bone removable bone when the rates of the bone deposition is greater than the bone resorption. Then increasing growth hormone strongly stimulates the osteoblast. Therefore, bones continue throughout the life. Throughout the life under the influence of growth hormone. This is especially true for the membranous bones. For example, the jaw bones can be stimulated to grow even after the adolescence, causing forward protrusion of the chin and lower teeth. Likewise, the skull can grow in thickness and give rise to protrusion over the eyes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Greater than when the rate of deposition is greater than that of resorption, the thickness when the rate of deposition is greater than the resorption, the thickness of the bone the thickness is greater than the resorption, the thickness of the bone the thickness of the bone increases. Growth hormone stimulates osteoblast. Therefore, the bone continue to grow in thickness, and the lower bones. This is especially true for the membranous. Bone. For example, the jaw bones can be stimulated to grow after adolescence, causing forward protrusion of the chin and the lower teeth. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.